Hey, everybody. Welcome to Music Talks and Tea. These have been a pleasure to do in the last few months. We had our first one with Professor Phil Ewell, followed by Professor Ryan Keberly, and today, Professor Ashley Jackson. Dr. Ashley Jackson is one of our colleagues here at the music department at Hunter College. She has a doctorate from Juilliard in Harp Performance. She has performed on most of the major stages of the world. In New York City, that's Carnegie Hall, National Sawdust, Alice Tully, among many others. She's a virtuoso performer. Dr. Jackson has also positioned herself as an important voice in the development of new works for harp as she commissions from living composers and develops transcriptions that feel more like translations of well-known works for harp. Today, we're extremely fortunate that we will hear a stunning world premiere of an adaptation of a work that you probably all know, or at least have heard of, but I'm not going to give it away. It's a pleasure to work with you here at Hunter, and it's my great honor to welcome Ashley to today's Music Talks and Tea. Ashley, can you join us? Are you there? Yay!
Hi,
How's it going?
Good.
I went a little high test today. I have a coffee rather than a tea, but
All right.
that's okay. I'm so excited. I was so thrilled to get a sneak peek into some of the things you're going to be sharing with us today. It's a real pleasure and honor to get to hear these works and try out some new stuff. A lot of what you're going to share today is brand new, right?
Yeah, Suzanne. So I have been working on material for my debut solo album, and so I'm trying out a couple of those new tunes for you guys today. So
yay. Well, we are
how it
so happy to be your laboratory.
Thanks.
So I'll just hand over the mic to you, and we are going to go on a journey of Afro harping. Thank you, Ashley.
Awesome. Thanks, Suzanne. Hey, everybody. I see some of my colleagues on Zoom, so it's good to see you. For those joining on YouTube, welcome, welcome, welcome to Afro Harping. I'm Ashley Jackson, and I'm really excited to share with you some of the music I've been working on here at home in Harlem. So let's get to it. Before we get to those world premieres that Suzanne had alluded to, we will begin today with the Negro National Anthem, Lift Every Voice and Sing. This arrangement was done by my harp sister, colleague, friend, Brandy Younger, but I encourage you to sing along. So I'll leave the text up there, and we'll just be doing verses 1 and 3. All right. So here is Lift Every Voice and Sing. For those of you who are joining with us via song, here's your opening chord. All right, so thank you again for joining me on this warm afternoon. And that was Lift Every Voice and Sing as arranged by Brandy Younger. For those of you who are just entering the space, welcome to Afro Harping. I am Ashley Jackson. And we'll be talking about Black music, history, and creativity. Earlier this summer, following the murder of George Floyd, I vividly remember sitting down at my instrument, looking at the music that was on my stand. And all I could play was Lift Every Voice and Sing. So this is me as a kid, about 7 or 8 years old. You can probably guess what my favorite color was. But I would have been playing piano for about 2 years. And at that age, I would have just started playing harp. As a kid, I would get really, really nervous before concerts. And my dad would say to me, "Hey, Mo, when you go out and perform, remember that you're playing for something bigger than yourself." So growing up, my family, we listened to all kinds of music: soul, jazz, R&B, records, CDs, all of it. We'd sing it. Stevie Wonder, Aretha Franklin, Marvin Gaye. But somehow my mom would end up on the piano playing it like her Hammond B organ. She would make sure that we knew that the music came from the church. And I think that even there's another layer to that memory. The very first composers in this country, very first Black composers, were those singers of spirituals. As America's first performing art form, spirituals served as the foundation for future forms of Black musical expression. And if we look, we can look very closely at specific musical elements in spirituals and find them reused, repurposed, reshaped in all kinds of genres that we have today: jazz, hip hop, R&B, gospel, of course. With regards to the text, these spirituals are often coded with ambiguous meanings. So on the one hand, they wouldn't arouse suspicion from white listeners. but also so they could communicate important information to one another. So in these texts, we find themes of freedom, the afterlife, water, but also sorrow, loss, and grief. Altogether, they express an array of feelings of an enslaved people. And for me, they're like living artifacts. They conjure up a very powerful memory. I wasn't there, of course, but my ancestors were. And through these songs, I can gain access to what may have been in their hearts. One of the most well-known spirituals is Deep River. And so I'm going to play just the opening melody. Here you go. The opening text is Deep River, my home is over Jordan. Deep River, Lord, I want to cross over into campground. Right in that opening line, there's a contrast between the deep river and the home over Jordan, somewhere deep inside versus somewhere over there. Rivers played a significant role for the enslaved. They represented safety. They would hide the scent for those who were on their way to escaping. They also carried the boats of enslaved African Americans up north. So I think in that text, just right in the beginning, I think what we can take away from that is a message of if you stay in something, if you be patient, you'll eventually get to where you're going. And where you're going will be better than where you started. This very popular spiritual was arranged for solo piano by the composer Samuel Coleridge-Taylor in 1905. I fell in love with the arrangement, and so I transcribed it for harp. Here is Deep River. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening. Again, that was Deep River as arranged by Samuel Coleridge-Taylor. So thanks again for joining us. Hi, David. Thank you for your comments, everyone. It's so great to see you and be with you in this space. I've got one more tune for y'all this afternoon. So let's talk a little bit about that. This next piece is titled Prima, and it's by the harpist, pianist, and composer, Alice Coltrane. Like my mom, Alice Coltrane grew up playing piano in the church. And I think that tradition, that practice really strongly connects her to the African-American spiritual. And we see that in the way that Coltrane believed so strongly in the power of music to move, to excite, and to deepen awareness. After her husband, John Coltrane, passed away in 1967, Alice soon experienced a series of revelations. In her own practice, she drew from a variety of religious traditions. And in her music, we see her drawing from all different kinds of styles, especially beginning in the 1970s. And that as a result, her music really kind of defies boundaries and moves beyond genres. So the piece I'm going to play for you, again, is titled Prima. It's from her 1978 album titled Transfiguration. And I was first introduced to this piece a few years ago. The Urban Playground Orchestra asked me to find a couple of tunes that would work with strings. And so this was one of them. She actually performs it live on the album as a pianist, and she's backed by some strings. So the artistic director of the orchestra and I, we worked on the transcription. I played it, but I knew it was just the beginning for me. So what does Prima mean? Well, in Hinduism, it means pure love for the divine, which completely melts the heart. And so in the album version, the piece begins with an extended piano solo. And it starts like this. Kind of sounds like the end of something. But what Coltrane does is the music actually opens up in time and in space. She moves all across the keyboard. And so for me, that's spiritual right away. What's the end, what sounds like the end of something is really the beginning. So as you listen to this version of Coltrane's Prima, I invite you to close your eyes or just kind of look softly in front of you and think about a moment when it seemed like a door was shut and there was no way around the situation. But really what it ended up happening is it forced you to take another path. And what you ended up with was more bountiful and more than you probably had dreamed about. Maybe that moment is rediscovering love or a passion for something. So I invite you again to meditate on that kind of moment as I play for you the premiere of my version of Coltrane's Prima.
Wow, Ashley, I just want to ask everyone to unmute themselves and just clap. I think we just have to celebrate that. I don't want to hear anything else all day.
Thank you.
Bravissima.
Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Oh, beautiful. Oh my goodness. Thank you. So if you guys don't mind muting yourselves, or Brad can mute everybody, so we can now start the second part of today's talk, which is a chance for folks to ask questions. So those of you who are joining us from YouTube Live, please feel free to either jump into Zoom or write your questions in the chat and they will get delivered over here and I can share them with Ashley. And those of you who are in the Zoom, you can go ahead and put your questions in the chat and we will have a conversation. This was just, I mean, I don't even have words for the beauty that we just all experienced. You know, not just the music itself, but also your way of shepherding the music to us and being a vessel for this is really, really something extraordinary. And it makes me so happy to be your colleague. I was thinking about the Alice Coltrane. For me, that is just crazy. Like, I need to spend a lot more time listening to this new version. Something that's amazing about what you've done is if you listen to her solo recording of this piece, she has an incredible sensibility of voicing as a pianist, right? Like incredibly orchestral, so many nuances, and you know, the center register of the piano, like she plays with that in a really special way.
Yeah.
And I felt also your interpretation and translation for solo harp was just incredibly well voiced, but the harp is a totally different reality than the piano. Yeah. What were the challenges? How did you make this into a new language that is just as powerful as the one she shared with us when we heard it the first time?
Thanks. Yeah, you know, Suzanne, you mentioned she's an incredible pianist and has such a huge range of colors. And so my first sort of job was to acknowledge that and realize that what the piano can do and offer in terms of sonority and power, the harp can too, but it's got to be in your fingers in a very different kind of way. So how the whole process started, the artistic director of the orchestra who asked me to work on this, he transcribed, you know, it based on the piano part. So I took that and I just started first checking the harmonies and the melodies and just getting that into my head. And then from there is a lot of experimentation, you know, so trying out different textures and figurations, which is really a lot of fun. And in a way, it reminded me of working on Baroque music. You know, you sort of sit down and you have to improvise. So it's like I had the template, I had the sort of basic outline, but I really had to step away from what she was doing and let the harp tell me sort of what sounds would work and which ones wouldn't. So it also has taken, you know, several years to sort of come together, I think, in a way, and I'll keep tweaking it.
Well, it's incredible. And this is going to be an amazing CD. This is just going to be such a powerful, I mean, and your harp is sounding more orchestral than ever. I have to say, it is so rich. The practice that you're going through right now of spending time by yourself with the instrument, I don't know. It's crazy. It's really incredible. And we're getting it through Zoom, which is not the best, you know, way to hear this music, but
thanks to you guys for the sound right up to the last minute.
So we can take questions. So feel free to put them in the chat or put them in either on YouTube Live or in the Zoom. I was really moved by something you talked about earlier in terms of speaking about your ancestors and the music that was made and the suffering and the joy and your process of trying to gain access to that. Can you talk a little bit more about gaining access and how that helps you live as a musician right now?
Yeah, so this summer was a real sort of deep dive into, I took this opportunity to really dive into the material for the album and focusing on spirituals, because that was sort of the newest for me as a harpist. And part of my research included reading slave narratives. I, was studying great secondary sources about music and singing during slavery, but I wanted to also have in my head and in my heart the voices of those who were actually enslaved. And so one of those narratives was by Harriet Jacobs, who I pictured in my slideshow, Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl. And it's an incredibly moving story that I read several times. I'm currently reading a book about one of George Washington's slaves,
Oh, wow.
Mona Judge. And
Oh, wow.
I'm in the middle of it, so I'm not quite sure how it ends, but my understanding is that she also was able to escape slavery, and that the Washingtons were looking for her basically her whole life. So it's a mixture of, sort of classic research, but also firsthand accounts.
That's incredible. And does it help? How about the processing? We're living through a lot of pain at the moment, and how is gaining access helping you, sort of on a daily basis, find the joy and find the resonance that makes you the artist that you are?
I think that it certainly helps to put a lot of what we're going through now in perspective. To think that as difficult as things are, and they are difficult, right, for all of us, for different parts of the spectrum, but it's hard. But to consider that I wouldn't be here able to share this moment with you guys and share this music had it not been for a kind of perseverance that it's just there's no words. So it's extremely humbling, really, to sort of go back and think about again, my great grandmother, what she would have had to do, and those who came before me.
That's amazing. So we do have some questions coming in. One of them is from our colleague, Michael Sheets, who you know as the conductor of our choirs in the Hunter Music Department. So you mentioned that you played the piano for 2 years when you started learning the harp. And can you talk to us about that transition? Like, what took you over into harp land? Why did you start plucking instead of pressing?
So I started piano when I was 5, and I loved it. My parents didn't have to tell me to practice. And so my teacher suggested that I study harp as well, because there are some real strong similarities. And as a kid, when you want to do something, you're naturally curious. And so I was really fortunate that my parents said, okay, well, we'll do this. And so I actually played piano for about 10 years. To the beginning of high school, and then I had to make a decision about what I wanted to focus on. And the harp, I could play an orchestra more.
Yeah, that's nice.
Music.
Yeah. All the pianists are nodding their heads right now. Yeah. We're lonely. Pianists are lonely compared.
So it's really, it actually was about playing with other people.
Yeah. That makes sense. We have a comment from one of our YouTube Live listeners, that your performance was gorgeous and it gave me inspiration to try learning to play the harp myself sometime in my life.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So sharing the joy. Thanks. So what's next? Are you working on another adaptation? Is there something in the works that maybe wasn't quite ready for today, but starting? You don't have to share. Okay.
Bit by bit.
It's okay.
A longer concert. Probably next month that will incorporate an additional spiritual and a tune by Brenda Younger. She arranged the version of Lift Every Voice and Sing. So I'm really sort of weaving it into my fall programming.
Oh, great.
Try it out, see how it fits.
So I guess we'll all have to tune into that concert. Do you know when and where? Is it your living room again?
Virtual and
okay.
sometime in October.
Sometime in October. All right. So everybody here, please send us your contact information if you would like an announcement for Ashley's upcoming concert next month, where she's going to expand upon this incredible, like, it's like we just opened a drawer to see jewels sparkling in front of us. Just incredible gifts of music, really. So needed, so appreciated. It seems like just the very beginning of a project that's going to be quite powerful.
Thanks, Suzanne.
Yeah. Well, thanks everyone. We had such a great turnout. I see so many colleagues from the Hunter Department of Music.
Yes.
Hey everybody, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, and I see a friend who's over in the UK, Brett.
Oh,
hi,
wow.
thanks for joining.
You stayed up late.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Welcome,
yeah.
students. Thanks.
So this is a series. We're going to do these throughout the year, Music Talks and Tea. So you can see, like, I'm done now because it's an hour of having some warm beverage and getting a chance to go deeply inside of the creative work of one of our faculty members. And this was a really incredible journey, and I can't wait to hear more about what's happening, Ashley, with your work and staying in touch about October.
All right.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Have a good week. Bye.
Bye.